normal thing. I just basically, it's a hypothesis. The third one is little interesting, and I've done an experiment for the same. Light is a particle and travels with the help of gravitational waves. So it's a question like why polarization is a natural phenomena. Why in nature polarization exists? So according to me, light is a particle, and gravitational waves help this particle to travel from one place to another. And gravitational waves, obviously, it's an extension to light travels in a straight line. So next thing, yeah. So Young's double slit experiment. I've done this experiment back in my when I was an MSc student at University of Glasgow. So let's see the old way of doing an experiment. Or I am sure all of us must be quite acknowledged. But let's just discuss this fast. So a coherent and monochromatic light source must be required. Two slits will be there, and an interference pattern will be created at the screen. So it's a very interesting experiment that light acted as a particle before passing through slit, and then converted to a wave after passing through slit. Basically, it is a duality from which we physicists have been struggling for so long. So it is one more interesting aspect is like, if we put an observer, if we see from which slit the photon or electron has passed, the wave function, like the interference pattern collapses, and it just reduces to the two dots as predicted by classical physics, and it has given a solid background to quantum mechanics. So this is the experiment which I have done at University of Glasgow. So obviously the condition for interference, a coherent and monochromatic light source. So what I did is I used a plane polarized linear polarizer to make this light plane polarized, and then I let this light to fall on tilted slits. Basically, if the light is polarized at 0 degree, then the slits are tilted at 23.4 degree, and the 23.4 degree is the axial tilt of our Earth, and I'll come to it later. So with respect to the polarized light, so the interesting part is that no interference pattern appeared on the screen. Only two dots appeared, diffracted dots, basically, as predicted by classical physics or after wave function breakdown. So here the observer effect went obsolete, and this is the solid experiment which I have done, and it is just my hypothesis, proof to my third hypothesis. So this is my theory of spatial connectivity, which I have derived based on some hypotheses and some derivations. So according to this theory, I'm saying this theory is a unified theory and can be applicable to all the reliance of science and technology. So according to this theory, every mass has a web of gravitational waves around it, whose smallest unit is Kaushal constant. Basically, Kaushal constant is angular momentum, and energy of gravitational waves is always quantized in a form of its angular momentum. So here is the some formulas for Kaushal constant, in which first is mass, then its gravitational constant, then Planck's constant, then in denominator its acceleration due to gravity, and a square is basically radius if we are talking about a sphere, and it is also inversely proportional to time. So I'll also come to it later, and it is directly proportional to the heat released or absorbed. So in modern terms, we call this web of gravitational waves around a mass as empty space. And we all know that 99.9% of everything in this universe is empty space. And I feel that empty space is not really empty. It is a web of gravitational waves we just can't see. Energy of gravitational waves is always sometimes I've discussed, and gravitational waves or darkness. Basically, I'm saying that darkness is traveling faster than light, and it is quite observable. Like every light source converges to a point source as we move away from it. So there must be something in the surrounding which just making that light source to contract to a point source, and I think that that's darkness or shadows. And the speed of gravitational waves in space-time or gravitational space-time is c square, and that of mass in mass is c. That is the speed of light. So it is just I have applied this theory on Earth, on our solar system basically. Here's our Earth, and it is tilted at 23.4 degree with respect to the sun. So I'm just taking the Earth rotation into consideration for simplicity. So Earth must be radiating gravitational waves at this 23.4 degree, and the effective surrounding gravitational waves are coming from sun at an angle of 0 degree. So we can see a quadrilateral is formed, like there will be a infinite series of quadrilateral will be formed starting from the center of gravity of Earth and moving to till infinite. So this quadrilateral is what we are calling Kaushal constant, and we can see that just according to our hypothesis, it always origin is always the center of gravity. So these Kaushal constants or these quadrilaterals must be of increasing size as we move away from Earth, and that's why I think that time starts to flow fast as compared to that on Earth, as as a result we are using GPS today. So it's just some note that empty space is also an element of light, because we are working on something related to it, and 99.9% in everything in this universe is empty space. So it is there is another gist to this theory related to quantum entanglement. So it this theory also says that when two masses, like two masses are there, and they have their individual waves of gravitational waves around themselves, and when these two masses came in physical contact, then a new web of gravitational waves will be created, which will encircling these both waves, and will be independent of their individual waves, and their masses will start to act as a single entity of mass. And it's quite obvious on weighing machine, by just seeing the mass we cannot determine how many objects of how many of various masses are there. We can just simply say a combined mass we can get. So it's something like that, and it is also, and say like that, once this combined wave is formed, it cannot be destroyed. And I think that quantum entanglement is possible only due to this thing, like we have two photons. Obviously we are saying that they have zero mass, but the mass is not zero, it is relatively negligible. It is the lowest we have ever gone. So uh, sorry. So it also says that when we put two photons together and move them apart, and if we change the spin of one photon, other spin has to be changed instantaneously. So it is only possible because we have just created a new web of gravitational waves by just putting these two photons together, and the information exchange of information can will always be instantaneously. So 1 = 0 or 2 = 1 is quite obvious. 1 = 0 quantum entanglement is the equation of consciousness, which can only be applied according to the reasonable will of a conscious mind. And it also represents Einstein's mass energy equivalence. It's there something in the next slide, and what it says that let me go to the next slide. So Einstein's mass energy equivalence is when Einstein has given his original papers, he said this, he quoted this formula: m equals to E by c square. And it is the physical significance of this formula. What I found is the appearance of dust over any surface of mass after some period. So where the m is the mass of the dust particle, E is the energy of the gravitational waves, and c square is their speed in space time. So this is the physical significance, and obviously I can say that this formula is, if we say E equals to mc square, is mathematically equals to m equals to c by c square. But their physical significances have been varied and been unnoticed for a long period of time, according to me. So these are the some properties of gravitational waves, and these are not the only properties. So like their energy is always quantized in a form of its angular momentum Kaushal constant. Their speed in space time is c square. I've derived it using these equations of consciousness as a hypothesis, or a experimental setup. Basically on based on that I've derived this speed, and it is also evident, like in 2017 the detection of gravitational waves, which both three scientists from Glasgow won a Nobel Prize, that the speed of gravitational waves, the deviation from the speed of light was less than few parts in 10 raised to the power 15. So c square is also equals to 10 raised to the power 16, so nearby same. So in Mars their speed is c. So like we can see that, let's move on to the next point, then I'll say shadows have three parts, and due to and these three parts are due to the three groups of gravitational waves traveling in three different directions. So we can say that uh, like by like the hypothesis which I'm saying, that light is always a particle. So let's see, we can only see our shadows in light. So the photons are coming towards Earth and they just bounce back, and the gravitational wave passes through our body and forms a shadow on the surface. And it is evident that shadows are always 3D images pictured on 2D surfaces. And when two gravitational waves, another property, when two gravitational waves meet, then some part of their energies got converted into dust. And it is quite evident. We have never thought that from where this dust is coming. Obviously, most of it is human dead cells, but it is evident that there is a constant amount of dust coming from space on our Earth every year. It means they have to have a constant source to it. If it is coming constantly from years to years, from centuries on our Earth. So this is the thing I feel like, the constant sources that when they meet on the surface of a Mars, they got converted into some part of their energy got converted into dust, and eventually after time we are able to see that. And sorry. Next is empty space is a web of gravitational waves whose smallest unit is Kaushal constant. I've discussed it before also, and I guess that's all.